Joining us now is CBS News contributor and correspondent for the New York Times. That's Jodi Kantor. Welcome, Jodi.
Thank you.
On the train coming home last night, there were a lot of pink-hatted people on the train, and they said on a scale of 1 to 10, they would have given that march an 11, that there were no arrests, that it was peaceful, and they think their message was heard. What stood out for you?
Turnout beat expectations not only in big cities like New York and Washington and LA, but really across the nation and across the world. I talked to women who marched in places like Cheyenne, Wyoming, small towns in Minnesota, in Pennsylvania. I want to tell you the story of a librarian named Michelle Barton in northern Minnesota. She was so stirred by the idea of the march that she decided to march herself. She was just going to hold a placard and go down the street of her town solo.
All alone.
All alone. In the end, 60 people joined her.
Where might it go? What might become from these marches?
That's the question. If you looked at the signs, which was a fascinating project all by itself this weekend, there were so many different causes represented, but the uniting factor was an almost vitriolic opposition against President Trump. My colleagues wrote about this in today's paper, and they quoted a Democrat saying, "Trump is the cure," not meaning Trump is the cure to the nation's ills, but Trump is the cure to Democratic animus.
But leading up to the march, Alex, I kept hearing the organizers say this is not an anti-Trump rally.
Right.
This is about women who are speaking out. It certainly didn't seem the case, though, when I was watching it.
They focused a lot on intersectionality, that this was the coalescence of a number of different causes, whether that was immigrants' rights, reproductive rights, or freedom of speech. But in the end, the tone, and I think Jodi saw this too, was overwhelmingly anti-Trump. The thing that was most interesting to me about the work going forward, Charlie, was the fact that a lot of these women were grandmothers, mothers, and daughters. This was an intergenerational almost happening, and these women were continuing conversations at home and fully intended on continuing conversations nationally as activists.
But 53% of white women voted for Trump. Where were these women? Many of them, I'm sure, voted. But where was that movement to propel Hillary Clinton into the White House that many thought would propel her into the White House?
Well, President Trump tweeted pretty much the same idea. He first tweet, he said, did all of these women vote? And many of them probably did. But I think it just goes to the diversity and also the huge divide in the country.
The leading candidates for the Democratic National Committee, were any of them there?
No, in fact, they were at, my colleague Maggie Haberman reported that they were at a weekend retreat for donors.
So what does that say about the future of a political party trying to harness this power that was on display?
Well, I think it's complicated, right? This is the day after the president has been inaugurated, and I think Democrats have been really focused on a peaceful transition of power. I think elected officials, while they may have voiced their support privately, didn't feel like it was appropriate for them to be standing at the foot of the White House on President Trump's first day protesting his future administration.
But it also did show an energy, an organization, and as Alex said, a kind of intergenerational approach that the Democratic Party did not have
So is it a legitimate
this election.
movement now? Is it just a one-day, is it a one-off? Back to Charlie's question, what happens now?
There were certainly the stirrings of it. Part of what was impressive was how handmade it felt. The pussy hats that women stayed home and knitted, the signs that they made themselves. What a lot of people said about the signs is that these handmade signs feel so much more authentic than the kind of mass-produced Hillary signs that people waved at the convention.
Is it comparable to anything in history that we've seen?
I think what is special about this, what is distinctive, I would say, about this, was the day after a president's inauguration, to see so many people around the country and the world rise up and say we are fundamentally not okay with this man being president. When I interviewed women...
Because we think it puts at risk things that we believe in and feel that are necessary.
A preemptive strike, if you will, not just nationally, but internationally. I mean, the size of these crowds around the globe, you look at the New York Times map and there are dots covering planet Earth. These are people uniting for a man who has had one day in office.
Yesterday, I asked a lot of women what they wanted out of this going forward, and they didn't talk. They talked a little bit about their causes. What they really said is, I want a different president.
Okay, I hear that, and I'm asking sort of, could it begin there and become something even larger in terms of the empowerment of women, in terms of a whole range of issues that are crucial for women and their place and their opportunity to participate in the world that we live in?
Well, can I weigh in on that? I think in the next 2 weeks we're going to see a choice by President Trump for the Supreme Court, what that judges or justices or persons views on abortion may also add to that. What happens with the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, whether that repeals some of the preventative measures that have gone in place that allow women free or covered birth
Contraceptive
control.
coverage.
But the other side is, would some of these women who marched be willing to work with Republicans? For example, many Republicans are now in favor of paid family leave, and the Trump administration may have some sort of proposal on that issue. Would the marchers back that, or do they want to basically oppose everything this president does?
And to your question, Charlie, you know, we'll see where the activist movement lies, but there was definitely interest in signups.
Yeah, but look, it's called the Women's March on Washington.
Yeah, so were there
Women's
people
March.
signing them up? Was there some master list being created?
There were
Yes.
social media was huge, signups online.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
I hope there's a way to work together on all of this. Thank you both, guys.